What an amazing opportunity this is to be part of Emunah's fundraiser. When I started to research exactly what Emunah does, I realized very quickly that the question I should be asking is not what does Emunah do, but what don't they do? I saw everything was covered, from children, teens, adults and seniors, educational opportunities that they were providing, to helping seniors simply make ends meet and put food on the table. There's so much in between that I don't think I have enough time to exhaust the long list. But I was so impressed by this organization. To me, it just appeared to be the Walmart of tzedakah opportunities. Maybe even on a higher end, the Target or Amazon. It was the 401k of every possible tzedakah and chesed I could have thought of, bunched up into one. And to provide and to give to such an organization, I think is the most valuable thing a person can do. When you make investments for tzedakah, you have to make the right investments. And it seems to me, it appears very clear that what Emunah does is definitely the right investment if somebody's looking to help Klal Yisrael. I wanted to share with you a thought that perhaps will give a little motivation and a little chizuk about what this night is all about. There's a Rashi in Chumash. When he talks about Hanukkah, it's the only place. Rashi says a few short words, commenting on a pasuk about Shevet Levi. Moshe Rabbeinu gives a bracha to Shevet Levi, all the way at the end of the Chumash. We read it on Simchas Torah when everybody's too busy and too excited to pay attention. The pasuk says about Shevet Levi, Machatz Mosnaim Kamav. Moshe gives a bracha to them that they should gird their loins. It sounds like some kind of bracha about war, bracha about strength, a bracha that they should strengthen themselves when they attack the enemy. And Rashi points out specifically what this is referring to. Hispal Aleim. Moshe Rabbeinu was davening about the future. He was prophesying what will be when it comes to Klal Yisrael. He says, Ra she'asidin chashmonoi yuvanov lehilachem im hayivanim. Moshe saw that in the future, Klal Yisrael is going to have a war, a terrible war, for such a deep-rooted reason, to protect and to ensure the future of the ruchnius of Klal Yisrael. And the Chashmonaim were going to be on the attack towards the Greeks. And he says, Hispal aleim. Moshe davened for them. Lefi shehayu mu'atim. Because they were very few. Now, I remember hearing this story as a kid, and I thought to myself, and I've always thought to myself, and I think we all think to ourselves, the Chashmonaim were very few in number. Maybe hundreds, perhaps thousands, going against an army of well-trained soldiers in the hundreds of thousands. And you say the miracle of Hanukkah was so great because nobody would have thought the underdog of the Chashmonaim could have ever possibly in anybody's wildest dreams have beat the Yevonim. But Rashi tells a different story. Rashi says, Lefi shahayu mu'atim. The Chashmonaim were very few in number, but not like we always thought hundreds or perhaps thousands. Yud Beis B'nei Chashmonai, the 12 sons of the Chashmonaim, of that family, Ve'elazar, 13 in total, Keneged Kama Revavos, against many, many tens of thousands of Greek soldiers. And I'm blown away. You know, it's hard to believe. When you see a Rashi like this on Simchas Torah, when you're doing Shai Mikra on these parshas, you're surprised and you say to yourself, maybe it's the alcohol, maybe there's something else involved, maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, maybe I'm saying something, and you plan on coming back to this on Hanukkah, but you forget all about it by that time when that time comes around. It's time to remind ourselves that the nace of Hanukkah was a nace like we could have never envisioned. Not hundreds and not thousands against the Greek army, which in itself would have been a tremendous miracle. But it was much more. It was 13 against many, many tens of thousands. Now, how could that be? It almost seems unrealistic and impractical. And where was everybody else? So I want to tell you a story that happened to me this Shabbos. I had the honor this Shabbos of spending it with 18 and 19-year-old boys who came to Eretz Yisrael to learn. in spite of all the difficulties and all the challenges of Corona, they were adamant and they pushed their way through, getting visas and jumping through loops, over hurdles to finally get to this country and to live out their dream of post-high school, coming to learn for a year or two. Being with these guys over the last few months has definitely granted me tremendous amounts of inspiration. But what happened this Shabbos was something that changed my life forever. The story itself is not so great, but it allowed me to have an epiphany on life. And I wanted to share that with you. Over the course of Shabbos, each boy, and they were mu'atim, Yud Beis plus 1, 13 altogether. We sat around on Shabbos, and we spoke Divrei Torah, and we sang Zmiros. And I noticed that one boy after the next, there was a similar message in every Dvar Torah, in every speech. And it went like this. One boy stood up, and he spoke about tefillah. He spoke about how tefillah grants us with a tremendous zechus to connect to the Ribono Shel Olam, to connect and beseech Hashem for anything and everything we could possibly need, to give shevach, to give hodah, to give thanks and praise, but at the same time to ask Hashem and beg Hashem to help our lives get to the places where they need to be. And he finished off by saying that tefillahs, if you really mean them, if they really come from the heart, tefillahs then connect to the eyes. And sometimes when the heart connects to the eyes, you can tear up and you can even shed a couple tears. And that's when you see your tefillahs are real. Now, I might be slightly cynical, but when I listened to this Dvar Torah, I said to myself, this isn't so practical. This is a lofty idea that we've heard and maybe even we've spoken ourselves many times before. But how often does that really happen? To have tearful tefillahs? And then the next boy spoke. And he spoke about Yaakov and Shem Ve'ever, learning for 14 years, motivated and driven and enthusiastic, never had an ounce of sleep. And I had the same cynical question, the same cynical thought went through my mind. Is that a practical idea? Or are we just exchanging lofty ideals and aspirations that will never come to fruition? And one after the next, after the next, after the next, the same ideas of these aspirations, these she'ifas, that I wondered, are these boys even capable of? And then the clock struck 9. It was 9 o'clock on Friday night. And our plan was to make our way to Nissim Black's house, which is just down the road. So we got there and we sat down. And he said, listen, boys, I'm going to give a little schmooze and then we're going to party. And he gave a strong message about what he feels about Yiddishkeit, what he feels strongly about. Perhaps he was touching a chord about what got him here in the first place. And it hit a chord by everybody else. What I witnessed for the next 2 hours was the most uplifting singing and dancing I've ever seen on a Friday night. And I'll tell you the epiphany I had at that moment. When Klal Yisrael develops lofty aspirations, when each individual member of Klal Yisrael develops lofty ideals about what he envisions about his future, this is real. This is absolute reality. When a baby comes into this world, we've heard many times the mashal, he comes into this world with his fists clenched tightly. And when a person leaves this world after 120, he leaves with his hands open, as if to say that when I'm coming in, I want to grab everything. I'm going to look and I'm going to dream and I'm going to push myself forward to get every ounce of ruchnius, every ounce that could push me and could generate more for me as an individual, for my family, for my friends, for my community, and for all of Klal Yisrael. But what happens over time as we get older is we experience frustrations. We experience disappointments. And our history starts to tell us about our future. And it's the biggest mistake a person can make when his history will decide what his future will be. I call it the Daf Yomi syndrome. When the Siyam HaShas comes around, the next day everybody jumps on the train. We all decide, the men, at least the men, decide, I want to give it a shot. And they jump on that train and they last for a few days, some for a few weeks, maybe for a few months or for a few years. And slowly but surely, the numbers that joined in the beginning start to wane. They start to decrease. And people say, you know what, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'm not that kind of Jew. Maybe I don't have the consistency that it takes to get to the Siyam HaShas. And they jump off the train. I don't believe that's failure. What's failure is when the next cycle begins, that your history should determine your future. That just because you failed the first time, or maybe the second, or even the third or the fourth, or some 75-year-old Jew says, I haven't succeeded in accomplishing Daf Yomi for the last 9 or 10 cycles. That should never determine what happens to the up-and-coming cycle of your life. When the Chashmonaim stood up against the Greeks, they knew that they were Mu'atim. And it was very clear when they looked around and nobody else was joining the troops that they would remain Mu'atim. But they stood steadfast in their dreams and their aspirations, and they said to themselves, all we need is the support of the Ribono Shel Olam, and nothing will stop us. The world today gets excited about the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is that 20% of the population of the society of the world will get for themselves, will amass the wealth of 80% of all of the world's wealth. And we talk about the 1% who succeeds way above and beyond everybody else, hits the peaks of society in so many different realms, while the other 99% is left to grasp at the crumbs left behind. And concepts like socialism want to equal the playing field, to pull those people down who have climbed above society and lift those people up who struggle. And I always think to myself, and I had that epiphany over the Shabbos, and I say, and I wonder in confidence, who's succeeding here? Who's really succeeding at life? Are those perceived who have amassed all those materialistic things to be the ones who are succeeding? Or is it about the journey? Not so much about the results, but is it about the journey? The ones who keep fighting, the ones who keep pushing, the ones who keep prodding, and the ones who keep believing in themselves until they reach any ounce of success. Are those the ones that are really succeeding? And when I look around, it becomes very clear to me that the answer is an absolute yes. The ones who are determined in this world to be privileged, or God forbid, underprivileged, was the stroke of a decision from the Ribono Shel Olam. It's not up to us to decide where we stand in society. But what is up to us to decide is how we play the cards that we were dealt. The Chashmonaim understood that they were Mu'atim. And when they found that one jug, Uminosar Kankanim, from the remnants of the jugs, they saw the potential for Nitzchias. Not 1 and not 2 and not 5 and not 6 and not 7 days, which is Teva. But they saw the potential for Nitzchias, for eternity, that every Jew has. The 1% club is not a small population of society. It's a part of every individual. There's 1%. There's from the Noser Kankanim that lives in every Jew that says to him day in and day out, even though it's frustrating, even though you've been disappointed, but don't let go of those lofty aspirations. Don't give up on those dreams. If you failed before and you failed again and you failed 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 times, Sheva Yipol Tzaddik V'Kam. The pasuk doesn't say that a tzaddik may fail or fall 7 times. The pasuk says that that's the way it has to be. If somebody wants to achieve righteousness in this world, Sheva Yipol first, and then Vikam, and then he will rise up. Because it's about the journey. And Sheva is just a number. You know, we think to ourselves, 7. To fall 7, I fall in 70. I fall in 700. I fall 700 times in a week. Sheva, I'll never be a tzaddik. Sheva's teva. Sheva's nature. Sheva's whatever is the natural given path to fall. In our day and age, with all the struggles and challenges we have, we fall all the time. We forget to do things to fulfill our responsibilities. We lack the sensitivity sometimes we should have to our family, friends, and neighbors. The failures and frustrations, they come in one after the other. But the one who rises above everyone else is not the one who ends up in the 1%. It's not the one who is perceived as the success of the community. It's the one who's driven. It's the one who pushes. It's the one who doesn't give up. It's the one who believes that minoser kankanim, from the remnants, from the leftover of the oil. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You can never allow your past to determine your future. And you have to believe in every time as if it's the first. The Shabbos that I spent in the company of these, what others might deem naive and inexperienced teenagers, to me was the most inspirational Shabbos, reminding me that perhaps we should be a little bit more naive. Perhaps we should go back to those days when we were a little bit more inexperienced, where we really believed that there was nothing beyond our grasp. There was nothing that we could not achieve in life. And as we grow older, we have to remind ourselves constantly that that's still true, that those dreams are still attainable, and nothing can stand in our ways of seeing them to fruition. On this Hanukkah, I want to remind all of us together that the underprivileged, what society deems as the underprivileged of society, are in no way, shape, or form underprivileged. What sometimes we perceive ourselves to have the opportunity to give, it's much more than an opportunity. It's a great honor and responsibility to share what we have with everybody else, to give everybody else and all of Klal Yisrael the opportunity to nurture that 1% that lives within them that needs nurturing, that 1% that believes that their dreams of their future can be fulfilled, that 1% that aspires on so many different levels, whether it be on a career or on a spiritual journey, or in terms of just establishing a family for themselves. And it's our responsibility to allow them to do it, because Hanukkah is forever the reminder that there are no miracles. Klal Yisrael works as a team, and it's our job, it's our honor, and it's our privilege not just to believe in our own future, but to ensure that everyone else believes in theirs. So I want to thank again this wonderful organization of Emunah for giving all of us the opportunity, not just to push ourselves to achieve our own dreams, but to let us be a part of other people's dreams as well. Hanukkah, these days, should give us a bracha to bring light into our families and everybody else's families, and to achieve and to remind ourselves that we can achieve all those dreams that we've ever dreamed. A Freilich Hanukkah.